Now, for more on the global ivory trade, I'm joined by two experts on the subject. With me here on set is Adam Roberts, CEO of Born Free USA, and I'm also joined by John Frederick Walker in Connecticut. He's a conservationist and author of Ivory's Ghosts, The White Gold of History and the Fate of Elephants. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Adam, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on this weekend's ivory burning. What sort of message do you think these sorts of events send about this industry?
Well, we believe it's an incredibly important public relations message to send a message to the entire world that there should be no marketplace for ivory, that the only animal that should have ivory tusks is an elephant, but it has to be a live elephant. And so what's equally important to having this done globally is the fact that it is happening all around the world. The United States has crushed tons of ivory. It's happening in China. So you have both the consumer markets and the elephant range states destroying ivory and saying it should be off the marketplace once and for all. It's an incredibly important message to send.
And John, let me bring you in here. What sort of effect do you think that these burnings have on consumers and also on the trade?
Well, first I'd like to say that I'm on the same page with Adam about elephant poaching. It's unconscionable, it has to stop. Where I think we differ is in what should be done to bring this about. I feel that these ivory burnings, particularly the last one that Kenya just did, does send a strong message, but it's the wrong message. It tells poachers and traffickers that with every blaze, the stock of ivory goes down in the world, and they're rubbing their hands in glee, thinking their own stashes of blood ivory have just gone up in value. I think this last week's bonfire is liable to backfire in higher black market prices in China especially, and more poaching.
Now, Adam, I'm going to bring you back in here. Do you think it's realistic? You've had this centuries-old trade that's been very lucrative for people. Is it really realistic to think that you can actually eliminate this sort of industry?
Well, I think what conservation history shows us is that you can have a dramatic positive effect to stop elephant poaching if you bottom out the market for ivory. And one of the ways to do that is to have an unequivocal global commercial ban on the ivory trade. That's what happened internationally in 1989. In the 2 decades preceding the global ban on commercial ivory trade, you had ivory being sold so much that elephants were poached to the point of dropping the population by half, from 1.3 million to 600,000. But after the 1989 ban, the market started to dry up because ivory became taboo. Poaching stabilized, population stabilized, and the market was gone. But what's happened in recent years is that certain southern African countries have tried to reopen the market. They've done one-off sales of stockpiled ivory to China and Japan, and that's led to an increase in poaching and an increase in the price of ivory. So the most important thing is to get it off the market completely, but then also have another global ban on ivory once and for all. Those two things together will bring an end to the poaching.
Now, John, some people would argue that in certain situations, maintaining some sort of legal ivory trade could be for the benefit. Do you think a total ban is the only option, or perhaps keeping some sort of legal trade?
Well, I think, first of all, illegal trade does permit countries who do right by their elephants, that is, have stable, well-protected populations, they're able to sell the ivory from natural mortality. Let's not forget that the only way an elephant can just die of natural causes, it doesn't have to be shot. And, you know, 500,000 elephants in Africa, rough figure, theoretically they produce something on the order of 100 tons a year of natural mortality ivory, which is guilt-free, no harm to elephants. It's what they leave behind. Only about 20% of that can be recovered from the bush, but it's still a significant amount of ivory, and it's perfectly legal. The other reason is that there is an immense amount of carved ivory that is in public and private hands in countries throughout the world, because ivory has been an object of trade since prehistory. The first carvings humans made were from the tusks of woolly mammoths, and is from Egypt to Europe to the Far East. It's been an object used for great art, a lot of trinkets, true, but a lot of great art because of its unique carvability. And it's ridiculous to think that those streams of legal ivory, either genuine antiques or authenticated natural mortality ivory, could not be either possessed or traded, so long as the trade is governed in such a way that it cannot be used for a cover for poached ivory.
Now, John, I do want to give Adam a chance to respond here. When it comes to this situation where you don't have all the countries on the same page, which means there are these pockets which can still help the trade go on and raise, in fact, pay perhaps the price, what do you think happens then if you don't have this cohesive effort, if you do have these certain pockets who just want to keep a legal trade?
It's a really important point, and I think it goes to the caveat at the end of what John just suggested, which is that the ivory trade never exists in a vacuum. It's never the ivory going from point A in Africa to point B in China or Japan or elsewhere in Asia. There is always an opportunity for laundering, which is why the unequivocal uniform prohibition on commercialization of ivory is so important. And what we're starting to see, I think, across Africa is that you may have some comparatively strong populations of elephants in places like Botswana or South Africa in southern Africa, but we're starting to see West African and Central African elephants poached to near extinction. That trade is moving east to places like Kenya and Tanzania, and then eventually it will move south. And as long as you have any legal trade in ivory, no matter whether it's from one country or 5 countries or one region in Africa, as long as that ivory is moving by organized criminal gangs and corrupt government officials, you're going to have an illegal trade laundering ivory in with that legal shipment. And that's really the inherent problem.
And one thing that we're seeing...
Well, I disagree with that, though.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Sorry. Just briefly, I disagree with the idea that it's impossible to have a trade, a legal trade, that can't be infiltrated. We've never seen one that was properly devised. With modern technology, it would be possible to have an amazing degree of control over each and every piece of ivory. It's just whether or not the CITES and the members of CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, could get together to have a highly regulated system, which would be, in effect, a cartel.
Now, I'm just going to end it here with you, Adam. We do have an example of Nepal, which is celebrating 2 years of being free of rhino poaching. So we are seeing countries who are doing this. How are they able to do it? And perhaps what other lessons can other countries learn from this?
Well, I think Nepal is a good example. They have had rhino poaching-free years in the past couple of years, and it's an amazing achievement where you have the Nepalese army and local police working with, as John suggested, technological advancements to ensure their rhinos are safe. But it goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. In other places like South Africa, which has incredible resources to put toward anti-poaching efforts, you have significant numbers of rhinos being poached, where in 2007, only 13 rhinos were poached in South Africa, but in each of the last 2 years, more than 1,000 were poached. And they're all trying to take advantage of the potential market for rhino horn, where exponential amounts of money can be made. Mozambican poachers are coming across the border. So that's why, again, just because you have success in one place doesn't mean it's universal.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. John Frederick Walker and Adam Roberts, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.